Let's not kid ourselves here, folks. Darktide can be an incredibly frustrating experience, especially when pickup groups are concerned. But sometimes, in that magical place that exists between time and space, that place that's just a perfect moment, a fleeting instance contained within itself, you end up in a group that just absolutely f***ing nails it. A team of the highest caliber. A squad of bad boy desperados with perfect situational awareness and the playing skills to match. I'm talking about exemplary players, ladies and gentlemen. Players with an intrinsic understanding of teamwork and the flow of the game. Players that can make the hardest difficulty look like a masterclass. I'm Action Johnny, and this is the Action Window. And today, I've got one of those fabled games for you. It's High Intensity Damnation. It's a map set on the most challenging biome of the game, the Hourglass. I forget the name of the exact map we're on, as they all kind of blend into one, but yeah, it's a toughie. The party composition is 2 mother-clutching Zealots, a veteran who never misses, and your boy Johnny here, burning it up with Psyker. If you played enough Darktide, you'll know that these Hourglass maps can be brutal. They're long, they're punishing, they're relentless, and full of large open areas where you can get shot to ribbons easily or separated from your party. They've all got multiple challenging event encounters. I mean, you get it. It's hard. I'll be quick with this preamble so we can get into the game and the commentary. I'm playing the Purgatus Staff Psyker, backed by a 4-sword. Psyker is one of the 2 generalist classes currently in the game, the other being the Zealot, and this is a class that I feel gets a reputation for being weak. While I can definitely say that it has its issues, being weak is definitely not one of them. You've got a lot of things to pay attention to and a lot of different resources to manage, but you really do have the tools to deal with anything. The challenge here, of course, is knowing what to do and when to do it, and also sometimes just surviving. Psyker is easily the squishiest of squishies in the game and will fold to a light breeze if you mess up. Build-wise, I'm running a 2-2-2-1-3-2 build, which in my opinion is the strongest build for Psyker as it perfectly suits the Purgatus Staff playstyle, which, again, in my opinion, is the strongest staff you can use at this level of the game. I'll be doing a build and loadout breakdown at the end of the video, as Psyker has some hidden mechanics going on behind the scenes, which you'll see displayed front and center over the course of this game. So buckle up, buckaroos, because this one was a nail-biter from start to finish. Let's take it away. Okay, and we're in. So yeah, a few things before we jump into the full-on commentary of this run. I had an excellent team, and the difference in this game is absolutely night and day between a bad team and a good team. So even though I thought I played pretty well on this run, absolutely cannot take all the credit. This was very much a team effort, and the 3 other players in my party were all excellent and really knew what they were doing. Never try to dodge those things on corners like that. It will not work. Let's talk Psyker for a second then. So, I know there are going to be people that watch this video and comment and be like, well, you didn't do anything. You know, the other 3 people did all the work and you just hung out. I mean, that is kind of, in a way, I mean, that's a very simple, like, unfair way of describing it. The Psyker's job is really, you're an overwatcher, you know? You are a generalist. You're not a specialist, like the veteran and the Ogryn. You're a generalist, which means you're good at everything, but not amazing at anything. And you're also a backliner, which means that, you know, your job isn't in the heart of the action. Your job is to sit back and you get the luxury of perspective, you know, which is something the veteran doesn't actually get. The veteran can have perspective, but every time you are looking around to survey the scene as the veteran, you're not shooting your gun and aiming at a specific target. So the veteran is a backliner specialist who's very, very focused, whereas the Psyker is a backliner generalist that does not have to be as focused on one specific thing, you know? Your task is really very much to look around and see what everyone else is doing and see what threats are coming from the angles that are not being observed, you know? You need to think about where you need to place yourself in order to make life as easy and simple and risk-free for the other members of the party. See, right now I see this Reaper behind us, right? No one else spots that, but I have the luxury of perspective. I do spot it. I'm able to ping it, and yeah, it gets shot and taken down. The Horde comes. I've, of course, like, built this build in order to thin the Horde out. It's really like an excellent... It's actually a pretty damn important role on High Intensity Damnation because, you know, the Hordes never ever stop coming. And while they're not necessarily, like, scary on their own or difficult to deal with, you know, they will, over time, cause attrition. So the more of them you could just thin out, the less attrition that equates to your entire party. Just want to point out this veteran as well. He is doing an absolutely excellent job. And he does the entire game. Honestly, this veteran is so impressive. The Zealots as well, but it's, you know, Zealots always look good when they're played well. Veteran's a bit more subtle. Another thing I think is really well illustrated throughout this entire video as well is how tightly the entire team stays together. No one at any point wanders off on their own. We are in almost perfect coherency for the entire duration of this run. And that is something I see that happens pretty infrequently, even on Damnation runs with pickup groups. As long as you're together in a tightly packed unit of 4, it's really hard to die to some of the more obvious wipe factors. Like, you know, grabbers, flamers, bombers, snipers. All these things can be counted much more easily when you're together. And even if you do have a person go down, reacting to that and getting them back up is so much quicker if you're all together. And I know it sounds simple, I know it's probably a point I've said to death by now, but I cannot emphasize it enough. And I won't stop emphasizing it. Really nice Purgatus moment here. So in that little instance there, I had the choice between attacking those crushers with my foresword and helping that way, or thinning out the Horde with my staff. I chose the Horde because it looked like my party were all over those crushers, and you never need 4 people attacking the same thing. So again, that perspective coming into play. But here, a lone crusher. Again, we're saved by just being literally on top of each other the entire time. Gotta say, as an aside, I absolutely love the foresword. I don't know what I was doing there. I should have been easily able to dodge that mutie, but I sort of looked to the right instead of dodging. But because the foresword is amazing, it's taken out pretty quickly. I would actually say the foresword is one of the best weapons in the game at dealing with specials that come into melee range of your party. It's got a very quick charge. The animation is much shorter than, say, the chainsword or the eviscerator or the chain axe, which you kind of get stuck and wobbled about on. Foresword's a quick hit and out. Great teamwork here by the Zealots. They are kiting the bot around taking it away from the veteran who's dealing with the other threats, the shooting threats. As soon as that Zealot gets eaten, you saw the veteran grenade go down there to knock him back out. Really don't want anyone staying in that thing's stomach for too long. I guess we'll talk about Brain Burst for a minute. Out of the 3 tools you have as the Psyker, being, you know, your melee weapon, in my case the Force Sword here, which I pretty much always use unless I'm playing Surge Staff, your Staff, and the Brain Burst. Brain Burst is definitely your weakest tool, because the breakpoints are bad for it on Damnation. That being said, it still deals with certain things exceptionally well. Snipers, trappers, and bombers. Bombers and snipers especially can sometimes be in positions that the veteran can't get with his gun. Or, in order to get them, he needs to make himself vulnerable. Sniper can deal with, Psyker can deal with that very well. I love that Force Sword, really do. It's just excellent at killing elites and specials. And like I said, the speed of the animation, how quickly it comes out, it always causes stagger. You saw I just knocked that crusher out of its overhead just then. It's an excellent tool for killing those enemies. Combined with the level 20 talent that allows you to block using peril as well. Makes it very, very good for survival. And I don't have one with Deflector, but if I did, I imagine it would help versus shooting enemies as well. Again, I just put myself in a position where I have a good view of what the immediate danger is in front of me, but if I need to react to what's coming from the right, I've got a perfect view of that. See, I just check on the veteran there to make sure that nothing bad is going on with him after hearing the dog howl. And this is really the joy of the Psyker. It's just being this silent watcher. All about that positioning. All about that observation. And just applying your talents where it's needed. Both these bombers make a terrible mistake. Just casually picking up scriptures in this high intensity damnation run as well. I don't even think I needed them. I was just like, yeah, fuck it. Scripture flex, let's do it. So even though Brain Burst doesn't like kill these enemies in one hit, or even with the crushers come anywhere close to killing them in a hit, just taking off a big chunk of HP makes them easier to kill for the party. The Force Sword just very handily dispatching those crushers in good time there. We'll talk about the Psyker Ultimate for a second. I mainly use it... I like to mainly use it in dense horde situations where you can cycle it endlessly to using Ascendant Blaze to regenerate your warp tokens. I'll show you what that does at the end of the video if you're not aware. But it's also just great for buying you a second or two of time with that stagger. In that instance back there, we had 6 shooters that like popped out of nowhere. I just staggered them to gain enough time so that they could be dealt with. Nice demonstration of the Force Sword push. Another thing that makes it an excellent weapon. The push and the push attack have really big range compared to other weapons. Push and push attack, which makes knocking dogs out of the air when they jump on you much easier with this weapon. Actually, it's the only weapon I can sort of kind of consistently do it with. It's hard to do with with the more basic melee weapons. Right, so the first like really challenging part of this level. This event can be a bit of a nightmare. I'll point out that I wasn't on voice for these people as well. This was a pickup group. So no one is communicating here. This is all just people acting instinctively. And this veteran is just all over him, man. I'm trying to help out where I can. He's obviously going to take care of most of those shooters, but I'm checking again the angles he's not checking. Brain Burst does actually remove the gunner type enemies in 1, so that's handy. Even on Damnation High Intensity. Almost killed myself there. Okay, so we see the objective is up. The Zealots start moving towards it, which is my cue to follow. When the front line moves, the back line moves with it. Force Sword doesn't really do a huge amount of damage in melee. Especially my one. My one's pretty average. But once you've got it once you've got a 381 and you've sort of got the correct perks on it, I'm told it can one-shot, headshot these spooky scaries here. Again, notice how tight we are as a team. No one's off on another part of the map on their own. Even the veteran, all 4 of us together, moving as a unit, fighting as a unit, the way it's meant to be done. I see all 3 moved. I haven't moved, so that's definitely my cue to immediately get over there and stop wasting time. Puzzle's done again. I'm going to move back. So you'll see I'm always looking around. I'm always paying attention to where my teammates are and where they're moving to. This guy just gives up at the window. He's like, nah, can't be bothered. Now, Veteran doesn't have a shot there, so that's definitely my job and a really nice example of where Brain Burst shines. You only need to be locked onto them for a second. This is a dodgy situation. We're trapped in this basement. There's a mutant in there I can see. I'm trying to get in. And then I see there's a second mutant that I wasn't aware of. And then a Tox Flamer. Oh, it's all getting intense. It's getting exciting and the game crashes. Well, that was anticlimactic. And we're back in the room. Fix your damn game, Fatshark. So it looked like I was pretty much dead there when I crashed. Be interesting to see what kind of situation the team is going to be in when I load back in. Because as soon as I would have died there, would have come in with a living bot. And I'm not actually captured when I come back in. I'm alive on a slither of health, so that's really nice. I guess I'm... no, the bot drops the scripture when I spawn back in. So, I don't know. It definitely looked like I went down there, but maybe that crash undid that. So, a bit spot of luck there from the crash there, if anything. And amazingly, everyone's alive and well. So everyone's looking a bit worse for wear. Smack is, yeah, so Smack's heading back to the Medicaid, which I could also deal with as well. Also use even. And of course there's the scripture we left before the event, so got to grab that. Notice how everyone stops shooting the Poxburster when it becomes apparent that they're not going to kill it before it gets in explosion range. Top tip there, if you're coming into Damnation or Heresy from lower difficulties. Yeah, I don't think I just changing my graphics setting there. I was trying to play this game without DLS on, but I was getting awful frame drops, so just changing it back there makes for a nicer viewing experience for you guys, even if it doesn't necessarily look quite as nice. That little left click on the Purgatus is so good. I've seen people complain about that attack, and I'm like, what are you talking about? This is like a rapid-firing left-click stagger that applies a single stack of Soul Blaze. It's really good in a pinch.
Just like the Imperium to abandon something perfectly useful in the name of convenience. Has it been like this long?
There will be a record somewhere. There is always a record. The sick lies in finding it.
The God Emperor.
So now we begin the section of the level, which is just a lot of traipsing through massive square arena-style rooms with lots of shooters. Very safe way to dispatch shotgunners there. That's the nice thing is the Psyker as well. When the veteran uses his F, you know, it will always highlight the gunners, whether or not he has the highlight shooter's talent active or not. And those are always the ones you want to be targeting with your brain bursts. Shotgunners especially, those have got to get removed ASAP. They're easily the most dangerous enemy in the game. Baron got a little beat up there, so he's heading back up to the Medicae. Don't think the Zealots... Oh, they do notice. There you go. Just making sure that he is okay. Never run off ahead while someone's leaving the Medicae. The spawn AI generator will spawn a grabber to kill them. So it seems like we get lucky here, and this room actually isn't super full of shooters. It's certainly a welcome relief.
I think this is the way.
And there's the third scripture. Bam! You can hear it coming a mile off. That Poxburster really does seem to have taken the long way around. So we'll just squelch it.
I think I inhaled some of it.
Nice, the Soul Blaze causes it to stagger there. Whoa. That ultimate ability was on a dime there. You see, that's why I love running cooldown reduction on Psyker. People will be like, oh, you know, 10% cooldown reduction, what's that doing? Well, at 30-second cooldown, that is 3 seconds off it. And sometimes, as you saw there, 3 seconds can make the difference between getting drenched in a gout of flame or not. And you mix that in with a level 15 talent that cools it down upon elite kill. Very, very nice. It's great. The dogs aren't even landing on people in this run. Getting annihilated before they can even get that far. Haha, famous last words. Doesn't matter though, because that sweet feet procs that makes its head explode. Yeah, you'll notice like how little I use Brain Burst in this run. I'm pretty much always at 4 walk charges anyway because of the passive proccing from the level 20 feet, and also Ascendant Blaze on level 30. So we'll just deal with the other enemies before we start dealing with the boss. The boss can be kited indefinitely, it's not very fast. We've got lots of space in this room, which is nice. My job here is to make sure the veteran is like freed up so he can shoot it in the back, because he's easily the guy that can kill it the quickest. Soul Blaze doesn't do too bad of a job on it though, once you start getting the stacks going. These Zealots have been so good with their Poxburster pushes all game. This is something I'm kind of making a mental note of as well. Oh shit. It's the bit from the intro. So this is absolutely awful, this position right here. I am thrown away from my team into an area I cannot get back up from, into a bunch of melee enemies as the Psyker. And here you see the left click of the Purgatus really saving my life, as well as the push. And I buy myself enough time for the Zealot's stun grenade to come down. And then, to my rescue, they valiantly come. So that's a really nice example of why that left click on the Purgatus Staff is so good. Full sword as well, just casually dispatching of the Crusher. Oops.
No more trapper.
Right, it's the last big room before the end encounter. Generally, you want to hang out on this ledge for as long as possible before dropping down. As Obi-Wan will tell you, it's always better to have the high ground. Get into a little bit of a tight corner there, but the Four Swords' defensive abilities allow me to survive and get out of it.
You should be more careful with those stray thoughts. I might get offended. You should keep your sticky thoughts to yourself, free.
The veteran does enough damage to the dog so that my Brain Burst can finish it off once it drops down out of line of sight for him. Again, another perfect Poxbuster push from the Zealots. Just so good with that. Do a volley of Purgatus here. Ah! Everyone moves so I don't hang about and wait for the mutant. See the range on that push there is quite far from that dog, but the push still managed to stagger it out of its run.
Feast on defeat, Ranger.
Really, really good toolkit this. The Force Sword, the Purgatus Staff, the Brain Burst. It's a lot of micromanaging, figuring out what you need to be using at what time, but once you get the hang of it, once you get the flow of combat, just so good. They definitely do need some quality of life changes, the Psyker. There's definitely some tweaks I would personally make to their feats or talents, whatever you want to call them. But they really do have the tools to take on any enemy in the game reasonably well. I see the sniper. Trying to get it in my Brain Burst. That second sniper shot comes out faster than I'm expecting, and I absolutely eat it like a chump there. It's dumb. It's kind of hard to get a line of sight on it there for the Brain Burst. I definitely played that a little too loose. Got away with it, but HP is a resource in this game. You really don't want to be squandering it on silly things like that. Luckily, we're at the end encounter, and I'm not punished. So, of the 3 hourglass hourglass maps, this is probably the nicest end encounter. It's still tough, but it's not like on the same level of difficulty as the spiral staircase going up or the goo factory. You see, I was going to brain burst it there, but had I done that and it died, it would have injured my teammates. So I stopped, knowing that I've seen this guy do a million successful pushes. And once again, he didn't disappoint. So we get 1 virus sample in this first locker. The worst part of this entire arena is actually up here where we are. It's quite narrow up here, the walkway. You don't have loads of space to maneuver, and all these little like doors in the wall open and just pop enemies out right next to you. And there's a lot of the enemies in this encounter. Ooh. Invisible sniper, that one hurt, and then I make a mistake and get hit by the enemies coming out the door next to me. And then the situation gets worse. A Tox Flamer shows up and a Burster. My teammates do the exact right thing and move away from me because there's nothing they can do while that Flamer's alive, except for lose HP unnecessarily. Haven't seen a lot of that flamethrower come out this game. It hasn't really needed to, but comes in clutch there for sure. I'm definitely feeling a little overwhelmed. I'm feeling the pressure a bit. I make a few mistakes there and get hit. The enemies just keep coming out these little side doors. We're making slow ground here. Just managed to get the dog with the push. So a situation happens here quite organically. The Zealots are dealing with threats behind us. The door opens up to where I was, causing me to back up and give ground, but it's giving ground away from the party, so now we're separated. And the veteran goes down. At this point, I'm just trying to get back to my party. I'm pushing through the horde, and I get myself into a situation where I'm surrounded, and I go down as well. The Zealot gets grabbed by a dog. It's looking bad, but luckily the 2 Zealots have not been split up. They're absolutely on top of each other. And if there's one class in the game with really good clutch potential, it's the Zealot. Another sniper appears. And luckily, we die right where we respawn, so Again, very lucky there, not punished. That could have been a super bad situation, possibly run ending. And you see what I mean about this walkway just being a super dangerous zone. Lots of enemy spawn points, not much room to maneuver. We get lucky though, the second vault is up here. I'm not sure if the vaults are random, if it's always the same 3. I haven't really played this mission. You do generally seem to get 2 up top and 1 below, so maybe it is always the same 3. What we do happen here though is we get super lucky and that we get 2 contagion samples in the same vault rather than 1 sample spread across 3 samples spread across 3 vaults, which can just, you know, add another 2 or 3 minutes to this whole end bit. I'm just flaming this Purgatus in every possible direction. The veteran finding whatever space he can to whip his gun out and shoot specials. He gets a bit separated from us here though, but he immediately realizes his error and heads towards the staircase we're coming to, and we're back together again. I can't hit that trapper, but the veteran can, and as soon as I see his gun firing, I move to start knocking the enemies that are attacking him off so he can get a shot. Same deal with the Tox Flamer there. Go for the Brave Burst, realize I can't do it, go back to protecting the veteran so he can. A second Tox Flamer appears. Veteran gets separated, but the event is finished and we can extract now. Poxbursters have weird interactions with staircases. They can either like doom you or be a blessing, depending on whether the Poxbursters are coming up or heading down. You can't push them downstairs or upstairs for that matter. So sometimes you can die by trying to do that. But yeah, we escape. And that's the game. I realized I didn't talk too much about Psyker in that game, but really, even though I was playing Psyker, that was more of what I found more interesting about that game is just how exceptionally well the team functioned without a microphone and just playing on like experience and instinct. So yeah, great example of that. Really nice party, really nice game. So now we'll jump into the build and the loadout. We'll talk a little bit about that. Okay, so this was the loadout you just saw me using in the game we've all just watched together. I'll go over it quickly. It won't take up too much of your time here, just explaining why I've chosen what I've chosen. The Foresword. I love this weapon. Is it great at horde control and damage dealing with its light attacks? No. But its push and its push attack are excellent at knocking dogs, clearing space in a pinch, lots and lots of protection from the block angle of that that block as well, and you can block forever with the peril block talent on the 20 row. The special attack is excellent at dealing with special enemies and elites, and with certain breakpoints and certain modifiers hitting certain values, you can get some really, really great killing power on it. In an ideal world, I'd have Deflector on this, I'd have Damage, Finesse, and First Target up at 80, and I would probably have some combination of 25% versus Maniacs, 25% versus Carapace, and or block cost reduction. I would need to do some testing with Deflector to figure out the block cost reduction one, so jury's still out on that. Right, Purgatus Staff. This is the main thing I want to talk about. The 3 stats that matter on this are Cloud Radius, Warp Resistance, and Burn. Damage, not important. Really, the damage from the staff does not come from this damage modifier. It comes from the stacks of Soul Blaze that accumulate on the enemy, which is affected by the Burn stat. The other thing that affects stacks of Soul Blaze on the enemy is critical hit chance. Critical hits will put 2 stacks of Soul Blaze on the enemy instead of 1. So critical strike chance perk and Warp Nexus Blessing, very good for that. As for the other perks and the other blessing, I know there's a blessing out there that puts Soul Blaze on stuff, so if you can get that one on Purgatus, I'd probably go for that, but, you know, we can't really affect blessings at the minute, so whatever. Focus channeling is meh, don't love it, but it's okay for now. But damage versus is again kind of meh, because, as I just said, it all comes from Soul Blaze, but the main thing is critical hit chance does really well on this staff. Curios. I've only got some basic ones here. In Magical Christmas Land, they'd all run the Toughness Blessing to give you as much resilience to shooting enemies on damnation as possible. I don't like wounds because I'd rather play to survive rather than prepare for death. And I don't really like HP because it really only affects getting hit in melee. And I think the Psyker, despite being very squishy, if you make a mistake, is actually quite survivable in melee. You know, between your Four Swords utility and the stagger on the Purgatus Staff, you know, assuming you don't just like end up in super bad situations like at the end of that run there, you shouldn't really be taking too much melee damage. So yeah, toughness all the way on the blessings, and perk wise, if I could choose, it would be combat ability regen, so I could cycle my F more rapidly. We'll talk about that in just a moment. More toughness and block cost reduction, so that my block on peril is even better. Okay, we'll go to feats now. I've gone for, as I said at the start of the run, 2, 2, 2, 1, 3, 2. Warp absorption. Excellent choice of the Purgatus Staff. You are just mowing down enemies with warp attacks. I mean, that's pretty much all Soul Blaze is. The Force Sword as well counts towards this. The Force Sword Special, sorry, and Brain Burst. So lots of variance there in how you can get your toughness back. 10% is small, but when you're dealing with lots of enemies and lots of Soul Blaze, you know, you can get your bar back incredibly quickly. Inner Tranquility, don't really need to explain this. You can just cast your staff more, which you really want to do in Damnation, especially on high intensity, because there's a lot of enemies, and the more stacks of Soul Blaze you're putting down on them, the better. Psychonetic Aura is really important on this build because we want our combat ability cooldown to be as fast as possible, so we can use Ascendant Blaze on the 30 row as much as possible. Also very good in general on high intensity damnation, where the party should be sticking together and always being in coherency. You can just imagine, like, those two Zealots in that game, they were getting their double ultimate back much faster. The Veteran was getting to use his F more. Just a really nice feat for the party here. Kinetic Deflection. This is a great feat, probably the best one on this row. It's so good that if you're at 0 peril, even with no block cost reduction, you can fully tank a Crusher Overhead with this talent, and you won't take any damage. So yeah, really good talent. I can only imagine this gets better with Deflector and block cost reduction. So I always run this, doesn't matter what build I'm running. Kinetic Flare, because brain bursting all the time is like pretty medium on Damnation. Things have a lot of hit points. Killing one thing at a time very slowly, best case scenario, it is not great. So I just like to get warp charges passively and have that fun variance as well. Like, you know, you don't really have any control over what this hits, but when it goes off, it's a little bit of dopamine, it's nice, and, you know, like I said, passive warp charge is always good. And then finally, the linchpin of the build. This talent is excellent. It spends all of your warp charges to put Soul Blaze on enemies. That's great. And that's whatever. 4 stacks of Soul Blaze is cool. But the main thing is, you then have a 10% chance to get your warp charges back again from any enemies that are Soul Blazed, from any damage source. I've had this work in ways where the only logical explanation is that it has to be proccing from other people's damage sources. Like, there are times, even in that video you've just watched, where I'll go from 0 to 4 warp charge stacks. And the only way that can be happening is other people killing stuff that I've soul blazed. And it seems like it just doesn't necessarily mean the soul blaze from the ultimate either. It can be soul blaze from your staff. So yeah, I'm not sure quite what is going on with this talent. There's definitely something working behind the scenes to provide an effect. More than meets the eye, basically. I haven't played like loads and loads and loads of Psyker yet. I have to definitely do some testing on this, but it's really very strong. And cycling that F with Ascendant Blaze is a really fast and effective way to utilize your warp charges. So yeah, that's the build. As you can see, it handled high intensity damnation very well. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.